Hello again, Tony here, back on my channel once more with another deck profile. So this week, while I'm still trying to brew things up for Genesis Impactors, I'd figure I'd backtrack on some statements and do a deck profile on something that I said I wouldn't do a deck profile on, and that deck is Tri-Brigade. Now, for those who had watched my Wednesday video, you may have noted that I had at some point wanted to build a pure Tri-Brigade deck profile to go along with the pure Dogmatica deck profile that I had profiled a while back. But I ended up scrapping that idea because I felt that the cards didn't go the full mile in terms of building a complete deck out of. And I still stand by that statement. Despite the fact that this deck has so much consistency available to it, the deck itself just doesn't put out enough monsters or has enough actual cohesive utility such that it could produce an effective end board without other support in other archetypes. And mixing the archetypes is fine, but I found that in most cases, with things such as Zodiac Tri-Brigade or Malfi Tri-Brigade, the Tri-Brigade strategy actually took a second stage to the main archetype strategy, where in most cases you use the Tri-Brigade cards as a backup strategy to do something entirely different from what the main archetype strategy was. And at that point, you might as well just be better playing those archetypes individually than together. Thus, the deck that I have here is going to be one that emphasizes a pure Tri-Brigade strategy, with the engine that I have put in here meant to complement said strategy without executing their own goals. And that strategy is one of utility and link turbo spam, where I summon out massive link monsters to push back my opponent, producing disruption on my opponent's turn on a minimal level, but also putting out massive damage on my turn for OTKs. Now, for those who don't know what Tri-Brigade do, Tri-Brigade is a Beast, Beast Warrior, and Winged Beast deck, i.e. an animal deck, that focuses on banishing animal monsters from their graveyard to cheat out animal link monsters from the X deck. And due to the fact that they summon them in this unique method, it allows them to cheat out a bunch of animal link monsters that you may not be able to summon through normal summoning conventions. And this produces a massive amount of consistency and utility for the deck. And these are some of the things I want to showcase as I get through the deck profile. Anyway, I've drawn on enough. Without further ado, let's get into the deck profile. Starting off with our Tri-Brigade monsters, we're playing 3 Tri-Brigade Fractal. All the Tri-Brigade monsters have a unique effect as well as a common shared effect among Tri-Brigade monsters, and I'll get into that effect later, but Fractal's unique effect lets me discard this card from my hand to send one Tri-Brigade monster from my deck to the graveyard. And in most cases, the monster you want to send is one of your 3 Tri-Brigade Nerval. That's because Nerval's unique effect allows me to search for one Tri-Brigade monster from my deck to the hand when Nerval is sent to the graveyard. This means that in most cases, I can commonly search for my extender in my 3 Tri-Brigade Karas. Karas's unique effect lets me send one Beast Warrior from my hand to the graveyard to special summon this card, effectively being a quick special summon that doesn't consume my normal summon. Now, due to the nature of these unique effects, it's pretty easy for any of these Tri-Brigade monsters to gain access to the other 2. For example, by discarding a Fractal, I can send a Nerval, which Nerval will then search me a Karas. By discarding a Nerval through my Karas, I can search for a Fractal. Or by linking away a Nerval for something like a Linkuriboh, I can gain access to Fractal, which then sends a Karas. This means that it's pretty easy for any of these Tri-Brigade monsters to put the other 2 into circulation for its common effect. And this common effect is one that allows me to banish any number of animal monsters from my graveyard to summon out an animal link monster from my extra deck with a link rate equal to the number of animal monsters that I had banished. And due to the fact that this is a special summon and not a link summon, it means that I can summon out animal link monsters from my extra deck that usually require specific monsters to perform the conventional link summon with, effectively cheating them out without the required monsters. This means that on top of the in-archetype link monsters that Tri-Brigade have, I can also summon out link monsters such as Double Dragon Lord and as well as Simorgh Border Sovereignty that are generally hard to summon but come with extremely powerful effects to boot. The only limitation to this effect is that after using said effect, I can only use animal monsters as link materials for my link summon. However, that limitation specifies that I can only use animal monsters as the material, not specifying that I can't summon non-animal link monsters, which means it's also pretty easy for this deck to summon out a link monster and then use them to link climb into generic links like Access Code Talker for free. This in turn gives Tri-Brigade access to very powerful link monsters, generic or non-generic, as long as they have a available graveyard to banish and pay for them with. The key operative word here, however, is available graveyard. See, despite the fact that these Tri-Brigade monsters have a pretty easy way of putting themselves in the graveyard, due to the limited available monster count of Tri-Brigade monsters, it's actually pretty hard for you to fill up your graveyard with just Tri-Brigade monsters, thus meaning that you have to rely on other animal engines to fill up your graveyard for these Tri-Brigade effects. Now, our engine of choice for this Tri-Brigade deck will be our 3 Ancient Warriors Sun Mu. Sun Mu allows me to send one card from my hand or field to the graveyard, meaning yes, I can send a Nerval and trigger its search effect, but it allows me to add one Ancient Warrior monster from my deck to the hand. And should another Ancient Warrior monster effect trigger, I can bounce one monster my opponent controls to the hand. And the target you're most likely going to search off your Sun Mu will be your 2 Ancient Warrior Zukong. Zukong, when added from the deck to the hand by an Ancient Warrior effect, allows you to special summon this card from the hand, effectively not only triggering Sun Mu's effect to bounce a monster, but also putting the additional body on the field. And it, being a wind Ancient Warrior monster, allows me to turn these 2 monsters into my Ancient Warrior's Double Dragon Lord, while also putting these 2 animal monsters in the graveyard for my Tri-Brigade effects. Now, I'm going to divert from the deck profile a bit to talk about the extra deck monster I just mentioned, our Ancient Warrior's Double Dragon Lord. Double Dragon Lord can be made using 2 Beast Warriors, with one of them required to be a Wind Ancient Warriors monster, i.e. our Zukong. And when summoned, he searches for any Ancient Warrior card from the deck to the hand. He gives every Ancient Warrior monster on the field an additional 500 attack, including itself, and on either player's turn, I can send one card from my hand or the field to the graveyard to target one card my opponent controls and bounce it. And all of these effects can be actually super synergistic with a Tri-Brigade strategy. For one, being an animal link monster, it can be cheated out off of my Tri-Brigade monster effects as a form of disruption. Secondly, that search into any Ancient Warrior monster allows me to add a Beast Warrior that can be used off of my Karas as a form of extension. Finally, the fact that it sends a card from my hand or field to the graveyard allows me to effectively put monsters from my hand such as Nerval to the graveyard, or send itself to the graveyard to fuel my Tri-Brigade plays as well. In fact, opening any Tri-Brigade monster alongside the Sun Mu engine effectively ends up on 1 disruption off your Double Dragon Lord, any Link 3 of your choice, as well as 1 Tri-Brigade follow-up play, and I'll showcase that when I get to the combo opponent of my deck profile. Finally, rounding off the monsters with our hand traps, we have our 3 Ash as well as our 3 DD Crow. The Ash is in the deck for obvious reasons, but we're playing the 3 DD Crow because it's not only decent disruption, but it's a winged beast that puts itself in the graveyard, which can be used to fuel your Tri-Brigade effects. Moving on into the spells, we're playing 3 Tri-Brigade Standoff. Tri-Brigade Standoff's primary effect allows me to send one animal monster from my hand to the graveyard to search for any other animal Tri-Brigade monster from my deck with a different type than the one I sent. This is essentially a way to cycle out your Tri-Brigade monsters, not only putting them into the graveyard, but also accessing a different Tri-Brigade monster that can be used with their unique effect. The only limitation to this card is that while this card is on the field, I can only special summon animal monsters from the extra deck. However, in most cases, it's not hard to actually send this card off of something like the Sun Mu engine or something like Droplets to get rid of that restriction. Speaking of sending, should this card be sent to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect though, you can also prevent your opponent from attacking for that turn, which can also be used to hinder aggression should your opponent push back too hard. Pairing with the standoff, we're playing 2 Tri-Brigade Airborne Assault. Airborne Assault allows me to target any one of my animal monsters, and then summon from my deck one animal monster of a different type and less attack. The only restriction to this is that after I do so, I can only summon link monsters from my extra deck for the rest of the turn. Now this card can be both very powerful, but also bricky likewise. Due to the fact that the monster you have to summon has to be of a different type and lower attack, there are situations where the only viable target doesn't have enough attack to summon anything out of the deck with. Furthermore, due to the fact that the monster summoned will have its effects negated, in most cases that monster summoned only has a purpose of being used as a link material, which means that in most cases the only really optimal target will be your Nerval. Regardless though, the fact that this puts an additional body on the field does make it very powerful as an extender for your Tri-Brigade plays, thus warranting having 2 in the deck but definitely not having enough to play 3 of. Moving on from there, we're playing 2 Cattle Call. Cattle Call allows me to target one animal monster I control and send it to the graveyard to special summon one animal monster from my extra deck of the same original type. The only issue with that being that the monster has its effects negated, can't attack, and is sent to the graveyard at the end of the turn. Now you may have seen this card back in the day in Raid Raptors, where they used this card to convert a Raid Raptor monster into a Satellite Falcon to be ranked up into an Ultimate Falcon. But in the Link era with Tri-Brigades, we can instead use this card to convert our main deck Tri-Brigade monsters into our extra deck Tri-Brigade monsters, effectively Link jumping 2 or 3 Link ratings above, which we can then use that Link monster to then go into higher Links of our choice. This card is then doubly useful in the fact that it's a quick play, which means it can be chained to something like an Impermanence or a Veiler on one of my Tri-Brigade monsters attempting to use its effect to summon out a different monster while still ensuring I get my Tri-Brigade effect off safely. This is further benefited by the fact that all your Tri-Brigade Link monsters have a graveyard effect on top of an on-field effect, meaning that even if Cattle Call summons out that monster with its effects negated, when you link away that monster, you still get that graveyard effect for that additional benefit, thus turning Cattle Call almost into a utility graveyard card. And obviously, since you're playing an Animal extra deck, you'll always have more than one option to summon out from your extra deck for each one of your Tri-Brigade main deck monsters. For example, for your Fractal here, you can not only summon out your Silver Shooter, but you can also summon out your Double Dragon Lord since they're both Beast Warrior. For your Nerval here, you can obviously summon out your Shurarig since it's a Winged Beast, but you can also summon out your Samorg as a Link 3 option instead. And for your Karas here, not only do you have the option of summoning out a Frigid, you have the unique option of summoning out Brigand the Glory Dragon, which when sent to the graveyard on the end phase, allows me to search or special summon out a Tri-Brigade from my deck for the utmost level of consistency. Now, due to the nature of the Tri-Brigade effects, most of your extra deck will be comprised of Animal Link monsters. This not only limits your extra deck choices, but essentially means that most of your extra deck will be comprised of essentially 3 of each Animal Link monster that you want to effectively get out, since they're so easily accessible. This in turn actually allows us to play 3 Pot of Extravagance without the limitation due to the fact that since you're playing 3 of each, even banishing 1 or 2 is not that detrimental in the long term. Finally, to round off the spells, we're playing 3 Tenki. We're playing enough Beast Warriors such as Fractal or the Sun-Mu engine where this card can actually get decent playmakers, and you can always send it off of something like Sun-Mu or your Ancient Double Warriors, or, like for example, our 3 Droplets as cost to activate their effects, effectively making a 2-for-1 benefit. Rounding off the main deck, we're playing the 3 Imperm as our hand trap, as well as our 3 Tri-Brigade Revolt. Revolt lets me target any number of my banished or engraved animal monsters, summon them to the field, and then perform a link summon with those monsters. This not only allows me to reuse any of my banished animal monsters, it does allow me to summon out something like Nerval, which then when sent to the graveyard, allows me to add a Tri-Brigade monster. And it's one of the easier ways to access something like my Shurarig, which has an on-summon disruption effect that I can use on my opponent's turn. The only limitation that you have to be aware of is that you can't summon back any of the monsters you cheated out with your Tri-Brigade effects due to them not being summoned out properly. Moving on into the extra deck, we have the 1 Brigand the Glory Dragon, the 3 Ancient Warriors Double Dragon Lord for our Sun-Mu engine, we have the 1 Samorg Bird of Sovereignty for our Tri-Brigade plays, as well as our 2 Axis Code Talker. It's actually really easy to summon out Axis Code Talker in this deck, given the fact that any of your Tri-Brigade monsters can summon out a Link 3, which then alongside the Tri-Brigade monster can be linked into Axis Code Talker for that sweet 5300 and free pop. On top of those, we're obviously playing the Tri-Brigade Link monsters as well. We're playing 3 Frigid the Barren Blossom, 3 Rugal the Silver Sheller, and 2 Shurarig the Ominous Star. Frigid here will be your most often accessed Link monster. On the field, she can special summon 1 animal monster from your hand, and when it's sent to the graveyard, allows you to draw a card, and then put 1 card back to the bottom of the deck, effectively being an extender as well as a way to cycle out dead cards to hopefully draw into more extenders or disruption. Rugal here brings back a animal monster from the graveyard with its effects negated, but it bounces back to the hand at the end of the turn. This not only allows you to bring back Tri-Brigade monsters which can then go back to the hand to be used on the following turn, but also can summon something like a Nerval which can be used to guard as well as search also. Shurarig here, however, is your boss monster for the deck. Should it or another animal monster be special summoned, you can banish 1 card on the field, non-targeted, being one of the most powerful forms of disruption in the deck. Furthermore, should it be sent to the graveyard, you can search for any animal monster that has a level less than the number of banished animal monsters you have, effectively floating into any of your Tri-Brigade monsters when it dies. All these cards are very essential not only because these cards can be cheated off of something like your Tri-Brigade effects, but also Catacall and their graveyard effects benefit the Link Climb strategy just as much as putting them on the field. So it's at this point that we reach the combo opponent of our deck profile, and for this specific video I'm going to do you 2 things. First off, I'm going to show you a combo that involves the Sun Moo engine, where I open a Sun Moo, any card to discard for that Sun Moo, and any Tri-Brigade monster. And then, after that, I'm going to follow that up by showing you a quick test hand to show you what a general play of an opening hand can be. Starting off with our Sun Moo combo, suppose my opening hand consists of one Ancient Warrior Sun Moo, a card to send off of that Sun Moo, and any Tri-Brigade monster, in this case let's say our Tri-Brigade Fractal. What's going to happen is I'm going to normal summon the Sun Moo and activate its effect, sending one card from my hand to the graveyard to add an Ancient Warrior monster, in this case being our Zukong. Now, in the given scenario where I open a Tri-Brigade Nerval instead of a Fractal, I'd be sending the Nerval from the hand to the graveyard instead, to not only search for my Zukong, but to reach the ultimate end goal of getting a Karas to my hand. Regardless, once I've added the Zukong to my hand, I'm going to trigger Zukong's effect to special summon itself to the field. From there, I'm going to link away the Zukong and the Sun Moo to summon out my Ancient Warrior's Double Dragon Lords, with its effect triggering now to add a second Sun Moo from my deck to the hand. Going from there, I'm going to activate Fractal's effect, sending it from my hand to the graveyard to send a Nerval from the deck to the graveyard, Nerval triggering to add me my end Karas. Then I'm going to discard the new Sun Moo I've added from my hand to special summon the Karas to the field, and then activate Karas' effect, banishing two animal monsters from my graveyard, in this case, any of them not being the Nerval in this case, to search out and special summon a Frigid to the field. And then from there, I'm going to link away the Frigid and the Karas to summon out my Silver Sheller. And this is the board I end on, passing to my opponent. Now, this kind of end board, while simple, does afford me a few things. First off, thanks to the Double Dragon Lords, I do have a disruption on my opponent's turn. And thankfully, thanks to the Silver Sheller, I also have fodder to fuel that disruption too. What's going to happen is that on my opponent's main phase, I can activate the effect of Silver Sheller to bring back one of my animal monsters, in this case being my Tri-Brigade Nerval. Then I can send the Nerval off of the effect of Double Dragon Lords to bounce on one of my opponent's cards, effectively doing disruption, but it also will trigger the effect of Nerval to add a new Tri-Brigade monster from my deck to the hand, in this case most likely being a Fractal. With this Fractal here then being able to fuel my graveyard once more to build an even bigger link play on my following turn. Now, this combo becomes even nuttier should I open the same 3 cards, but also open an additional animal monster to use. What's going to happen here is going to be very similar to the first board. I'm going to normal summon the Sun Moo, sending a card from my hand to the graveyard to add a Zukong from my deck to the hand, especially the Zukong thanks to its own effect. I'm going to link away the Sun Moo and the Liu Zukang to summon out your Double Dragon Lords, triggering to add your Sun Moo again. I'm going to activate the Fractal, sending the Nerval from the deck to the graveyard to add my Karas. But now this is where things get different. I'm going to activate the effect of Karas, sending the other animal monster in my hand to the graveyard to special summon the Karas, and then activating Karas' effect, banishing 2 animal monsters from my graveyard, once again none of them being the Nerval, to special summon out my Frigid. From here, I'm actually going to activate the effect of Frigid to summon out the Sun Moo I have in my hand, before then once again linking away these 2 monsters to summon out my Silver Sheller and passing my turn to my opponent. Now, thanks to that additional Sun Moo on the field, I am now provided an additional disruption on top of what my original board could offer. Like in the same situation, on my opponent's main phase, I can activate the effect of Silver Sheller to bring back my Nerval to the field. And then, I can use the Nerval as cost for my Double Dragon Lord to bounce one of my opponent's cards. What's different here is that now that I've triggered an Ancient Warrior effect, Sun Moo will also trigger, allowing me to target another monster my opponent controls and bounce that to the field. Not only once again grabbing me the Fractal for my follow-up play, but disrupting 2 cards instead of 1 for that single play. Moving on to the test hand, the hand that we're going to be working with today is going to include 1 Tri-Brigade Airborne Assault, 1 5 Formation Tenki, 1 Tri-Brigade Revolt, 1 Tri-Brigade Cross, and 1 Cattle Call. Okay, just by the fact that we have Cattle Call, I know our plays are going to be insulated, but I can actually see some very interesting boards we can make off of this. So let's see how this plays out. I'm going to start by activating the 5 Formation Tenki to search into my Ancient Warrior Sun Moo. From there, I'm going to normal summon the Sun Moo, but before activating its effect, I'm going to activate the effect of my Tri-Brigade Airborne Assault. This, targeting my Sun Moo, will allow me to summon out my Tri-Brigade Nerval. From there, I'm going to activate the effect of Sun Moo, sending the Nerval from the field to the graveyard to add my Ancient Warrior's Zukong. In the new chain, both my Zukong and my Nerval will trigger, with Zukong putting itself to the field and my Nerval adding me a Tri-Brigade monster. In this case, let's say our Fractal. It really probably doesn't matter. From there, I'm going to link away the Zukong and the Sun Moo to summon out my Ancient Warrior's Double Dragon Lords, with Double Dragon Lords triggering now to search me a second Sun Moo. From there, I'm going to activate the effect of my Karass, sending the Tri-Brigade and Fractal from my hand to the graveyard to special summon it to the field, and then activating its effect, banishing 2 animal monsters from my graveyard, let's say the Fractal and the Sun Mu, to special summon out my Frigid, the Barren Blossom. Now in this case, if I haven't used Cattle Call to dodge an effect, it's a good time for me to activate this Cattle Call to send the Karass from my field to the graveyard to special summon out a Brigand, the Glory Dragon, of which I will then use the effect of Frigid to special summon out my Sun Mu, before then linking away the Brigand and the Frigid to summon out my Silver Sheller. Then I'm going to set the Tri-Brigade Revolt, and then on my end phase, I'm going to activate the effect of Brigand to search for Tri-Brigade Karass to my hand. And this is the board I pass my turn to my opponent with. Now on my opponent's turn, we're going to do this very differently from what our usual combo would suggest. Instead of summoning something back with our Silver Sheller to send it with our Double Dragon Lord, your first disruption will actually include sending the Double Dragon Lords instead to the graveyard to do the disruption. From there, your summon will trigger and bounce another card, and that puts up 2 disruptions on your opponent's turn. From there, however, should my opponent keep pushing, I can activate the Tri-Brigade Revolt, this time to summon back the Double Dragon Lord, as well as my Nerval and the Tri-Brigade Karass, and then link all 3 of these monsters away to summon out a Shurarig, the Ominous Star. Shurarig, when summoned, will then trigger, allowing me to banish 1 card my opponent controls, non-targeting. And the reason I'm doing this now is because now I've saved up Shurarig's effect to summon back instead of a Nerval, which now also lets me search, mind you, and I'll get to that, but allows me to bring back the Zukong instead. Now, why have I done that per se? It's because Sun Mu here cannot be targeted by attacks while you control another Ancient Warrior monster, which means as long as Zukong is on the field, your opponent has to get through the Zukong to get over the Sun Mu, which means that you could save the Sun Mu for your following turn to do another play. Regardless though, let's say my opponent does try to out this entire board, clearing my entire field away. The fortunate part is, thankfully, due to the fact that I still have banished animal monsters, my Shurarig will trigger, allowing me to add at least, at minimum, due to having 2, a DD Crow. And this itself sets me up for an OTK on the following turn. Going into my next turn, I'm going to draw my card, and the first thing I'm going to do is send this DD Crow from my hand to the graveyard to special summon out my Karass. I'm going to activate Karass' effect, banishing 3 animal monsters from my graveyard to summon out my Link 3 monster. In this case, let's say it's a Morglink. I'm going to link the Morglink and the Karass away to summon out my first Access Code Talker. Note the word first. My Access Code Talker is going to trigger, targeting my Simorgh, gaining 3000 attack, and from there I can banish the Simorgh, as well as my Shurarig and the Tri-Brigade Rugal to pop 3 cards my opponent controls. But we're not done there. I'm then going to normal summon the Nerval and activate Nerval's effect now to banish 3 more animal monsters from my graveyard, this time to summon out another Link 3, in this case let's say a Silver Sheller. And once again, I'm going to link these 2 monsters away to summon out a second Access Code Talker, triggering its effect to target my Rugal to gain an additional 3000 attack. This essentially puts 3 pops and then 10,000 points of damage on my opponent to end the game from there. And that's going to do it for our Tri-Brigade deck profile. Honestly, as I said before, this deck still is kind of missing things. It's missing more Tri-Brigade monsters to be a pure strategy, and it's missing more extra deck monsters to actually push more disruption. Regardless though, I think the deck has amazing utility and has the ease to summon out a lot of very powerful links for free. And I think that in the right hands and potentially new support, this deck will eventually see huge meta play. Regardless though, my name is Tony Yang, this has been a Tri-Brigade deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.